Hey everybody, greetings. Back again for another set of CDs I'm about to show you here. And of course this next band is the great, well let me go ahead and list off the musicians. Alex Sinclair, Jeff Cotton, Jeff Hanley, John French, and Don Van Vliet. Produced by Bob Crenshaw. And of course that makes up the, or at least the first, the early years of Captain Beefheart. Oh yeah. And I got the album Safe as Milk. Of course this was the only album that was released under Buddha Records from them. The only album that they did from them. And you know, that, of course that band label, or of course that record label would be, would kind of tail off and kind of do, would of course be very popular for the bubblegum, that genre or whatever, like your Ohio Express and the 1910 Fruit Gum Company. Mostly a lot of like session people, whatever, because they weren't actually, I think the 1910 Fruit Gum, they were actually a real band, but I think Ohio Express they were like a fictional band. Well, they were, they weren't really a band, but still. So yeah, my one to go ahead and start here is Captain Beefheart, Safe as Milk. Now I like a little bit of that early Captain Beefheart, you know what I mean? It's not like, it's kind of like a little bit like the Doors, where they, that first album was kind of like, okay, all right, so this is kind of cool. This is kind of, a little bit, it's pretty digestible. It's got some very easy, you can really just sink your teeth into some of the music, and then of course the Doors, they, with the second album, kind of like with these guys, they kind of tailed off and did other, of course they went off to do, they were on the Frank Zappa's record label, I believe, and then of course they did of course he collaborated with him on, of course the Trout Mask Replica or whatever. But after Safe as Milk, they went off to do the Mirror Man sessions, and then they did Clear Spot, and they did some of the albums that didn't, which I think a lot of people don't really like. Some of the ones like Moonbeams, I think it was called. Yeah, where they went a little bit, they went a little bit, what do you call it? Just kind of a little bit, kind of that pop tradition. They kind of sold themselves a little bit. But I actually really enjoy Safe as Milk, and I pretty much love every single track on here. Of course, you got some really great other players on here, not just the ones I listed here. Don Van Vliet and Jeff Hanley and all that, and John French and Jeff Cotton. Those people. It's not just them, but you also have other people involved in the album as well, like Taj Mahal. I believe he plays on a few songs on here. But yeah, and of course the opening track, Sure Enough, and Yes I Do. And I like Captain Beefheart as as someone that can just really mimic or try to portray other like old blues players or old blues guys. He can do the Howlin' Wolf. He can, he's got different, he's very versatile in his vocals, and he got, what's his name? John French with the almost very out of left field, very out of the tonality of other drummers. Like he was a very unique player. Like he had the crazy hair, and like when you see them on like shows like Beat Club or something, they were like they were a little bit kind of like Frank Zappa. Like you had the Freak Out album, that first one there, where it was pretty digestible, just like like I mentioned there, Captain Beefheart and the Doors' first album. Then then the couple albums, a couple albums after, they started to get a little bit more they were starting to test the waters, basically, and see how they feel and see how they can change up a bit. They started getting more, avant-garde. They started getting a little bit more jazz fusion in there. So they were pretty. I do gotta say they were very, very hungry artists. And the way they do blues, and I like the way they do blues. It's not your Rolling Stones and your Animals. Where they do blues, they kind of change. You got like some arrangements that are a bit more odd, like an odd signature and timing and stuff. And I very much like that. Every time I listen to Safe as Milk, I always hear something different, than the first time I've heard it, or at least once or twice I hear the album, Yeah, Zigzag, Wanderer, Call on Me, Dropout Boogie, So Glad Baby. That's my favorite on that one. And of course you got a Yellow Brick Road. He's got like a very humorous. He's very much like a Zappa, But of course, before they got signed with Buddha, there was of course a little bit of history before, dating back before Safe as Milk. I believe they did Do Wah Diddy, right? Was that like one of the songs that they, which was actually produced by David Gates, and of course David Gates didn't like their style. It wasn't up to snuff with A&M, because I think that's what they were signed there. I believe they were doing some demos for A&M, and it's, they didn't care, So yeah, some great stuff, and I like, and you got a great photographer, which I think is definitely the great for any album cover, is Guy Webster. He did the front album cover for this for the first album. And yeah, just like the Doors' first album, just really kick-ass, really, easy to really marinate your brain or whatever. Some great stuff. Captain Beefheart. Okay, then we get... Now, I really love... Now, I want to go ahead and say this. I'm very different, and, my taste in music may not always be the same as yours. But I really love musicals. I like musicals. I like Showtime. I like show tune music. And I think this guy is absolutely one of the probably most well known. I mean, if not, maybe within pop culture, maybe within decades, of the one, the only Irving Berlin. Irving Berlin. He was born in 1888, and he died in. I think it was sometime in the 80s or something like that. And he actually died on the day of my dad's birthday, believe it or not. And he was 101 years old when he died. He died in his sleep in the Bronx where he was living. And if you know movies like, what was that, On the Avenue, right? And, White Christmas. I think he also did Yankee Doodle, I believe. Right, Yankee Doodle. God. He wrote "God Bless America," of course, back in I believe, sometime in the 30s or something like that. But he wrote one of the most groundbreaking, scores of movies. He's done. I think I was looking up like 1,000, almost over 1,000, like literally 1,500 scores that he did. Incredible and ingenious, But I do got one of his ones that he did. Now, of course, this was kind of back, or at least before the movie, however, this was actually about a real person, Annie Oakley. And of course, they made a Broadway musical out of it. And of course, the one to play Annie Oakley was of course the incredible Ethel Merman. Absolutely pretty much nailed every single song, and she definitely has that characteristic, very Broadway, very stage-like, for Ethel Merman. But But along came, I forgot the guy's name, but Rodgers and Hammerstein. They're like, oh, okay, we can do a movie out of, we can kind of do a movie based on the Broadway play or the musical or whatever. And of course, originally they had Judy Garland to play Annie Oakley, but of course she was, they worked her really tirelessly, so she couldn't really take the whole nonsense, basically, of MGM running her like a muck, basically, So they brought in a fine lady named Betty Hutton, and of course they brought in I really like Howard Keel. You know what I mean? Like, I believe some people, they hear him, they kind of think, oh, what's this? But he's a pretty good I do gotta say, I think he might be in my top 10 favorite actors. And he is absolutely a great actor. And he was definitely very well played. Of course he was the, Frank Butler or whatever. But of course, is Annie Get Your Gun, the soundtrack. Yeah, and I really like musicals, And it's got some fun stuff, musicals don't have to take themselves seriously, of course, And of course you got, what's his name? He went on to do a lot of movies, of course. He was in Kiss Me Kate, and he did other musicals and stuff. I forget the guy's name, but he's the son of Ed Wynn. Keenan Wynn. Yeah, Keenan Wynn was in Annie Get Your Gun. But yeah, you got The Girl That I Marry. Yeah, and of course, the song that was pretty big in the movie, however, was They Say It's Wonderful, which, Johnny Mathis also did on Heavenly as well. But yeah, it's kind of like, because Betty Hutton's kind of just very, she's very flamboyant and very, very energetic, And when I see the comparisons of her and Judy Garland, I can definitely see why they rather had Betty Hutton as Annie Oakley, and she absolutely nailed that role, And of course, you got some other ones that you didn't expect that weren't expected, of course, that many people now know, which is what's that? Oh yeah, Anything You Can Do. But yeah, just absolutely great, and of course you got There's No Business Like Show Business, which just definitely one of those great all-time classic musical things you see everywhere. If it's compilations and hell, they even had it on the the Disney studios, right? Or Hollywood studios. They once had that, the Great Movie Ride, and that was actually one of the main songs that they played before you actually go into the actual ride itself. They play There's No Business Like Show Business, but yeah, I like this kind of crap, I know, but it's fun. I don't really care. Hell. Okay, so now here's some more crapola, or more stuff to probably to click out of the video. But no. Here's a band that's kind of like America, right? They have that California sound. They're kind of right in that kind of soft rock kind of thing. Even Carpenters. I love Carpenters. But there's also another band that I actually like that's in that field, however. And that is Bread. Bread. Yes, I like this band. Hell, man, I don't care. I know, you can go ahead and click off the video if you want, but if you're sticking around, hey. I know some people like some of this stuff, and you know what? I like this kind of music, Maybe not a lot of people don't care about that soft music or whatever, but I don't care. But you know what? I like every single one of these albums. Now you got David Gates, who's really, I think he's actually really underrated. You know, now of course he went on to do solo stuff, of course, like you know, the Goodbye Girl and stuff like that. But I really like I really like All of Bread, you know. And here's their first one. Yeah, that was called Bread, I believe, from '69. Yeah, I really kind of like. I like every one of these albums from these, and I like these, you know, these little slipcase original album series thing. And of course, they're on Elektra label, you know, and I like some of this stuff, you know, and yeah, It Don't Matter to Me. I didn't realize I didn't realize that that it was on their first one. Yeah, and I do like the opening track, Dismissal Day. Yeah, but this was their first one. Then they said, okay, well, see, David Gates, I don't know, maybe the band members didn't really get, I don't know, they didn't really get the whole thing with him or whatever, but he plays every single instrument, however, that I know of or whatever. He played every instrument on, I believe he did, right? Yeah, because you got James Griffin, you got Rob Royer, and Mike Botts. So, yeah, I think they produced. Now they produced their first one. They also produced, I think pretty much all of their 5 original albums. But anyways, he played all the instruments on the big hit that was on this album here, On the Waters. And that is Make It With You. You know, we all know that song, right? You know? You know. I think I'm going to, I want to make it with you. I want to make it with you. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of crappy stuff, but it's still good. I mean, I like, you know, yeah, I Want You With Me. I mean, Easy Love. I kind of like that one too. I mean, I know some of the songs kind of blend in with each other, but yeah, and you got some great shots of them, of course. Then you got 1971, Manna. And I think this one's my favorite, but I mean, I do love all the Bread albums, of course. Yeah, it's got, you know, if a picture paints 1,000 words, and if a picture paints 1,000 words, then why can't I paint you? Beautiful song, If, of course, you know. You know, and I think there was another kind of good one on here as well. But If was kind of like the big song on this one. Yeah, What a Chance. Yeah, that's kind of good, you know. And Truckin', that's kind of, you know, kind of all right. But, you know, that's still kind of good. And there they are on the photo cover there under the bread, manna, because that's kind of like heavenly bread, you know. And yeah, and the Baby, I'ma Want You, Baby, I'ma Need You. A great one too, you know. And they were definitely like America, at least with the album covers and of course their music. They had some really great album covers. Yeah, of course it has Baby, I'ma Want You, Mother Freedom. That's when they were getting a little bit rocking, and I think that was definitely like the point where David Gates was like, I don't know, let's just stick with just the soft stuff, you know. Let's just stick with just the acoustic, stick it with just that slow stuff, not so much the rock and crap, you know. Yeah, but Mother Freedom, I love that song. Oh yeah, In Your Diary. Yeah, and Everything I Own. This has a little bit more of like more of their hits or whatever on this one. On on Baby I'ma Want You, and Just Like Yesterday. Really nice song. Yeah, of course, love the album cover too, you know, in the back as well. Now this was their last one. That's called Guitar Man. Yeah, I think this was definitely the album where David Gates was like, all right, I'm going off my own. I'm going on my own, you know. I had enough of this, you know, and I think they had enough with, you know, oh yeah, and you got a song that is a little, but I love it. I still actually like it. It's and Aubrey was her name, you know. Oh yeah, and Sweet Surrender. Oh, I love Sweet Surrender. That's a really great dance song from them too. Yeah. And of course the Guitar Man. That was kind of a moderate hit, you know, but that was still kind of good from them. Yeah, you know. Yeah, and again, it has a good string of big songs in here. Yeah. I believe Picture in Your Mind. That was actually kind of a decent song on this one. Now, of course, now obviously they split, and they, I believe it was for, I believe Elektra was like, they saw that they still needed one more album. It was some sort of contractual thing or whatever. And I believe who it was, the head of Elektra Records, had asked them to do one more album, and I don't have it. But it was a big hit. It was a top 10 hit, and it was also the name of the album. It was called Lost Without Your Love. You know, Lost Without Your Love. You know, yeah, I like Bread. They were good. And that's pretty much all I got to say here on this one. So until then, folks, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.